The call came at 7:32 a.m. on a Wednesday, exactly 156 days after they restructured my position. Nathan Brooks, crisp Boston accent, very professional. Mr. Castellano, we've discovered a significant compliance issue with Midwest Manufacturing's safety certifications. Are you available to discuss immediately? I was drinking coffee in my apartment above Rossi's hardware store, watching the sunrise over the Chicago skyline. 5 months earlier, I'd been Midwest's safety director. Now I was about to find out they'd made a $680 million mistake. My name's Antonio Castellano, Tony to everyone who matters. I'm 54, and I've been keeping manufacturing workers alive for 18 years. Before that, I spent 25 years in the Air Force making sure logistics operations ran without killing anybody. Same principle, different uniform. When safety protocols break in military operations, people die. When safety breaks in manufacturing, companies die. The day this whole mess started was a Tuesday. Austin Martinez walked into our monthly safety meeting and called my department legacy overhead with outdated methodologies. I knew right then Midwest Manufacturing was heading for a cliff. Austin had that entitled MBA energy you see everywhere now. $300 shoes, perfect haircut, and the kind of confidence that comes from never actually working a factory floor. CEO's nephew, newly appointed chief technology officer, whatever that meant in an 89-year-old manufacturing company. He didn't introduce himself when he showed up, just pulled up a chair and started swiping through his phone while I was explaining our Q3 safety metrics. 0 accidents, 127 consecutive days without an OSHA violation, and a 15% improvement in efficiency through better safety protocols. Austin looked up from his phone and said, "That's exactly what I'm talking about. All this manual oversight and paper documentation. We need to pivot to automated safety monitoring with IoT sensors and predictive analytics." Nobody asked him to present that day. Nobody stopped him either. He clicked through a presentation titled Manufacturing 4.0, Eliminating Human Error Through Smart Factory Solutions. Phase 1 was gutting my department. I'd been Midwest's named OSHA compliance officer for 11 years. That's 11 years of building safety protocols from scratch, watching regulatory changes sweep through manufacturing like tornadoes, documenting every nightmare scenario the Department of Labor could throw at us. I had 4 federal audits under my belt with 0 violations. My filing system was organized like an Air Force logistics manual. Everything numbered, dated, cross-referenced. Austin didn't even know what OSHA stood for. I watched him Google it during the meeting. That morning, he stood there grinning with his uncle's company credit card, called safety compliance an analog solution in a digital world, and suggested we replace human oversight with AI monitoring systems. My department was redundant, he said. My $89,000 salary plus $23,000 in benefits eliminated. That's $112,000 in annual savings, he bragged. Almost enough to upgrade our automation software. Someone actually clapped. I didn't. I just closed my notebook and asked, "Are we done here?" Austin left with his laptop and a satisfied little smirk. I went back to my office and opened a fresh file folder. It was protocol, military habit. When someone's about to make a catastrophic mistake, you document everything and prepare for damage assessment. I started backing up files. Every access credential, every safety designation, every legal document where my name appeared as the responsible authority. Most people at Midwest didn't realize our entire OSHA framework still required my formal signature. Every monthly filing, every safety certification, every violation response had Antonio Castellano listed as primary contact. No replacement had been designated. Nobody could replace me without board approval and formal reassignment paperwork filed within 30 calendar days. But Austin didn't know that. His Uncle George, the CEO, probably didn't either. At first, I thought someone would hit the brakes. Maybe HR would ask questions. Maybe George, who once called me the guy who keeps our workers from getting killed, might speak up. But nothing. HR sent the reclassification paperwork 6 days later. My new title, Senior Administrative Coordinator. My safety clearance was downgraded. My invitations to management meetings disappeared overnight. I nodded, no complaints. Even congratulated Austin when he bragged about hitting his first efficiency target. He actually gave me a thumbs up and called me Tony C. So I printed the original OSHA designation letter, the one signed by the board in 2018, and emailed it to my personal account with a timestamp. Then I printed 3 copies. One went into my home filing cabinet, another into a folder labeled Safety Continuity, Archive Only, and quietly placed it in the legal department's storage room. 3rd shelf, right side. I didn't tell anyone. See, people think revenge needs to be loud, dramatic exits and angry speeches about being unappreciated. But nobody appreciates a landmine either until someone steps on it. The real beauty was in Section 15.2 of our Operational Safety Plan, a clause I'd added 4 years ago after watching a competitor get hammered with $6.3 million in fines for improper safety officer transitions. It stated that any change to the named OSHA compliance officer must be formally reassigned by board resolution within 30 calendar days, or the designation becomes legally invalid retroactive to the vacancy date. Manufacturing safety fines start at $7,500 per day for minor violations. After 90 days of continued violation, they escalate to $25,000 per day. The math gets ugly fast. Austin had no idea. Legal hadn't checked. George just signed off on the efficiency report without reading the details. 7 weeks after the restructuring, I submitted my resignation. Clean and simple, effective 14 days from today, I will be stepping down from my position at Midwest Manufacturing Group. That's it. No drama, no exit interview demands, no company-wide email about being undervalued. They processed it like routine paperwork. Disabled my access by end of day. The IT ticket was so rushed they misspelled my name and forgot to update the safety registry. My daughter Sophia called that night to check on me. She's a junior at Northwestern studying industrial engineering. Smart kid, smarter than her old man in most ways, but she inherited my attention to detail. Dad, you sure about this? What about my tuition? Spring semester's coming up. Trust me, sweetheart, this is going to work out. Your old man didn't spend 25 years in the Air Force without learning how to plan for contingencies. Sounds like you've got something up your sleeve. Just following proper procedures. Sometimes that's all it takes. That weekend, I updated my profile on the Federal Safety Registry, setting my certification to active executive designation relinquished, no replacement filed, effective day 56. Then I registered as an independent consultant specializing in emergency safety compliance recovery. 24 hours later, my phone started ringing. By Monday, I had 6 serious inquiries, 3 from law firms representing companies in OSHA trouble, 2 from consulting groups, and 1 from a private equity firm that specialized in manufacturing acquisitions. That last one made me smile. Across town, Midwest hummed along without missing a beat. No exit procedures, no knowledge transfer, no replacement training. Austin was already planning phase 2 of his Smart Factory initiative. George started talking about the company's new agility mindset in trade publications. Nobody noticed the safety clock ticking toward day 31. I set up shop in a small apartment above Rossi's hardware store on Grand Avenue. 1 room, a coffee maker that worked half the time, and a view of the elevated train tracks. Rent was $950 a month. My first consulting contract paid $225 per hour. The math worked better than my old salary. Every morning, I'd walk downstairs and get coffee from Rossi, old Italian guy who'd run the place for 40 years. We'd talk about the Bears, the weather, sometimes about business. He knew I'd left Midwest, but didn't pry. Military guys don't pry about work. Day 67 of Midwest's safety violation, I got a call from a parts manufacturer in Wisconsin. Their safety officer had quit without notice, and they were facing an OSHA audit in 4 weeks. Panic mode. I quoted them $275 per hour plus expenses for a 3-week emergency engagement. They said yes before I finished the sentence. Day 89, I was on a plane to Ohio, helping a steel fabricator navigate a Department of Labor investigation. Their previous safety team had missed a filing deadline. The potential fines were in the millions. My job was to reconstruct their documentation trail and prove good faith compliance efforts. Military precision and attention to detail. Same skills, different battlefield. Day 118, the escalating fine structure kicked in for Midwest. Not that anyone there knew it yet. Manufacturing safety violations become exponentially more expensive after 90 days. The daily penalty jumped from $7,500 to $25,000. Still invisible, still accumulating, still retroactive today. 31. Day 134, I was back in Chicago when Sophia called with news. She'd been accepted into Northwestern's Accelerated Safety Engineering program. New field, growing demand, excellent job prospects. Guess who inspired me to look into it, she said. Your old man's rubbing off on you. More like I realized there's job security in keeping people safe. Plus the starting salaries are really good. Day 142, Midwest announced the deal of the decade. Press release went out at 10 o'clock a.m. Midwest Manufacturing Group files for $680 million initial public offering. The story made the Chicago Tribune business section. George was quoted extensively about Midwest's innovative operational transformation under new leadership. Austin was quoted too. He'd positioned himself as the architect of Midwest's lean operational model that attracted investor attention. The article mentioned his strategic elimination of redundant legacy functions as a key factor in the company's improved efficiency metrics. I read it over my morning coffee at Rossi's. The old man saw me smiling at the newspaper. Good news? He asked. You could say that. Sometimes patience pays off. Day 149, the due diligence team from Goldman Sachs arrived in Chicago. Professional, thorough, and led by Nathan Brooks, who'd spent 12 years auditing manufacturing IPOs for investment banks. His team included specialists in regulatory compliance, financial auditing, and operational assessment. They spent the first week reviewing financial records, operational metrics, and safety protocols. Everything looked clean. Austin had prepared beautiful presentations about streamlined operations and reduced overhead. The numbers were impressive. The timeline was aggressive. George had already started talking about post-IPO expansion plans. Goldman's executives were optimistic. This looked like exactly the kind of efficiently run American manufacturer that public markets wanted. Midwest's management team was confident. Legal had reviewed everything twice. The IPO was on track for launch in 3 weeks. Day 156. Exactly 31 safety cycles since my designation had been terminated without replacement. Nathan Brooks was in Midwest's legal archive room cross-referencing regulatory filings with personnel records. Routine due diligence, nothing unusual. He wasn't looking for problems, just verifying that all certifications were current and properly maintained. That's when he found my folder. Third shelf, right side, exactly where I'd left it 5 months earlier. Safety continuity. Archive only. Nathan opened it and started reading. The original OSHA designation letter. The operational safety plan with section 15.2 highlighted. The timeline requirements, the board resolution from 2018 that was never superseded. Nathan spent 2 hours going through every document. Then he cross-referenced the dates with Midwest's current safety registry. Then he called his team leader. The math was simple and brutal. Day 31 through day 156 equals 126 days of safety violation. First 90 days at $7,500 per day equals $675,000. Remaining 36 days at $25,000 per day equals $900,000. Total exposure, $1.575 million and climbing at $25,000 per day until resolved. But it got worse. Because no replacement had been designated, every safety filing, every OSHA certification, every compliance document submitted during those 126 days was legally invalid. Midwest had been misrepresenting its safety standing to customers, insurers, and potential investors for over 4 months, including Goldman Sachs. Day 157, Friday morning, 9:45 a.m. Nathan Brooks walked into the Midwest boardroom carrying a folder that would destroy everything Austin had built. "Who is Antonio Castellano?" he asked, setting the folder on the conference table. Austin looked confused. He used to work here. We restructured his position last year as part of our operational optimization. But he's still listed as your named OSHA compliance officer, Nathan said, opening the folder. According to the Federal Registry in this documentation, he remains the designated authority for all safety filings. George leaned forward. That's impossible. We handled his transition months ago. Nathan wasn't smiling. Where's the board resolution replacing him? The formal reassignment documentation? The updated federal notifications? Silence. Austin started typing frantically on his phone. George was already reaching for his. Legal was called out of another meeting. HR scrambled to find records that didn't exist. We assumed the transition was automatic when we restructured his role, someone from HR offered weakly. Nathan shook his head. Federal safety designations are never automatic. They require explicit board action and formal replacement within 30 calendar days. You've been operating without valid safety authority for exactly 126 days. The team leader, who'd been quietly reviewing Nathan's findings, looked up from her laptop. This represents material misrepresentation of safety standing during preliminary IPO preparations. Austin tried to salvage the situation. It's just paperwork. We can fix this in a day. Bring Tony back, file the forms, move forward. No, she said firmly. You cannot retroactively fix federal safety violations. Manufacturing safety fines escalate after 90 days. Your current exposure is $1.575 million, increasing by $25,000 daily. The room went dead quiet. George's face had gone gray. Surely we can resolve this. It's a procedural oversight. Nathan opened his laptop and turned the screen toward the table. Your safety violations create significant liability exposure for any public offering, but more concerning is the pattern of misrepresentation. Mr. Castellano left detailed documentation showing that proper procedures were available and ignored. He clicked to the next slide. Section 15.2 of your own operational safety plan, authored by Mr. Castellano, explicitly outlines the 30-day requirement. This wasn't an oversight. This was negligence. Austin's voice cracked slightly. We didn't see that documentation. It was filed in your legal archive with clear labeling, Nathan replied. Mr. Castellano followed proper procedure. Your organization did not. The team leader closed her laptop slowly. This is a material breach of IPO representations. We need to halt all preparation proceedings pending legal review. George stood up abruptly. Nathan, surely we can work through this. The IPO is scheduled to launch next month. Mr. Martinez, your company has been operating in federal violation for over 4 months while representing full compliance to potential investors. This creates exposure for Goldman Sachs that we cannot accept. Austin tried one more time. What if we bring Tony back immediately? Full reinstatement, whatever it takes. Nathan consulted his notes. Mr. Castellano is listed as an independent consultant. He may not be available for employment. That afternoon, Nathan called me directly. Professional courtesy, he said. Wanted to understand the timeline of my departure and the transition procedures that were supposed to be followed. I was in my apartment above Rossi's working on a safety manual for a client in Michigan. The call was expected. I'd been counting days on my calendar, watching the violation accumulate like compound interest. Mr. Castellano, this is Nathan Brooks from Goldman Sachs. We're reviewing Midwest manufacturing safety standing as part of IPO due diligence. Yes, sir. How can I help you? Can you confirm the timeline of your departure and any transition procedures that were implemented? I gave him the dates. Restructured on day 1, resigned effective day 49, final day 56. Explained the proper procedures, confirmed that no formal replacement had ever been designated. When he asked if I'd attempted to notify Midwest of the safety gap, I mentioned the folder. Safety continuity. Archive only, I told him. 3rd shelf, right side in legal storage, should still be there. We found it, Nathan said. Very thorough documentation. Section 15.2 of the Operational Safety Plan appears to address this exact scenario. Yes, sir. I wrote that clause in 2019 after watching a competitor get hit with $6.3 million in fines for improper safety officer handoff. Seemed like prudent risk management. Indeed. Are you currently available for consulting engagement? Depends on the scope and timeline. What did you have in mind? Day 158, Monday morning. The team leader called an emergency meeting. George, Austin, the board, legal counsel, everyone who mattered. She laid out the situation in terms that left no room for interpretation. Midwest Manufacturing has been operating in violation of federal safety requirements for 126 days. The regulatory fines currently total $1.575 million, an increase by $25,000 daily until resolved. Austin started to interrupt. She held up her hand. Furthermore, every safety document submitted during this period is legally invalid. This includes OSHA certifications, worker safety filings, and regulatory representations made to Goldman Sachs during preliminary IPO preparations. George's voice was barely a whisper. What does this mean for the IPO? It means the IPO is terminated, she said flatly. Effective immediately. Our legal team has identified material misrepresentation that creates unacceptable liability exposure. Austin looked like he was going to be sick. Surely we can resolve this. Bring Tony back, fix the paperwork, move forward. Trust has been compromised, she replied. Mr. Castellano provided proper documentation and procedures. Your organization chose to ignore them. This wasn't an oversight, this was a failure of corporate governance. The Goldman team was packed and gone by 2:00 p.m. Their final act was to formally notify Midwest's board that due diligence had revealed material safety violations and misrepresentation of regulatory standing. The press release went out Tuesday morning. Goldman Sachs withdraws from Midwest Manufacturing IPO due to unresolved regulatory compliance issues. Midwest's private valuation dropped 40% overnight. The business press picked up the story immediately. Headlines like, "Safety failure kills $680 million IPO and when cost-cutting goes wrong." Wednesday morning, my phone rang again. Nathan Brooks this time. "Mr. Castellano, Goldman Sachs is interested in retaining your services for comprehensive safety reviews of our manufacturing clients. 12-month contract, $225 per hour. Full autonomy over methodology and timeline. Are you available?" I looked around my little apartment. Coffee maker that worked half the time, view of the train tracks, and a stack of consulting contracts that had doubled my old salary. "Yes, sir. I'm available." Day 161, Thursday afternoon. George Martinez announced his early retirement effective immediately. The press release cited personal reasons and desire to focus on family. The board called an emergency meeting to discuss leadership transitions and operational restructuring. Austin was asked to submit his resignation by Friday. No press release for that one. Friday morning, I got a text from a number I didn't recognize. "Tony, this is Austin. Hope we can connect about industry best practices." No hard feelings. I read it twice, then deleted it. The Chicago Tribune business section ran a feature titled, "The $680 million Mistake: How Midwest Manufacturing Lost the IPO of a Lifetime." They interviewed safety experts, corporate lawyers, and business school professors. Everyone had opinions about proper due diligence and the importance of regulatory oversight. Nobody interviewed me. That was fine. I had work to do. Sophia called that weekend excited about her acceptance into Northwestern's safety engineering program. She'd been following the Midwest story in the business news. "Dad, they're using this as a case study in my business law class. Professor says it's a perfect example of how cutting corners on safety can destroy shareholder value. What's your take on it? That someone at Midwest knew exactly what they were doing when they wrote those procedures and someone else ignored them because they thought they knew better. Smart girl. Your old man's proud of you. I've been thinking about specializing in manufacturing safety. Professor says the field's growing, especially with all the automation happening. Good choice. There's always demand for people who can keep workers safe." Day 180. I moved into my new office at Goldman Sachs's Chicago Operations Center. 15th floor, corner office, view of the lake. My assignment was simple: review safety procedures for all Goldman manufacturing clients and recommend improvements. The work was familiar, but the scale was impressive. 18 manufacturing companies across 11 states, each with different safety requirements and local compliance challenges. Goldman wanted a unified system that could handle federal oversight, state regulations, and international standards. I spent the first month traveling. Michigan Auto Parts, Georgia Textiles, California Electronics. Each location had its own safety officer, each with different backgrounds and approaches. Some were excellent, some were adequate. A few needed serious help. The facilities that ran smoothest had experienced safety officers who understood both the technical requirements and the business impact. The ones with problems had either cut corners on safety staffing or promoted people who didn't understand the complexity of manufacturing regulations. Day 220, Midwest Manufacturing was officially delisted from private equity consideration. The company had been sold in pieces to various buyers, none of whom wanted the safety liability that came with the corporate entity. The original headquarters building was leased to a tech startup. Most of the manufacturing equipment went to a competitor in Indiana. The final regulatory settlement was announced the following week. Midwest's insurance covered most of the $2.1 million in fines, but the company's reputation was finished. George moved to Arizona. Austin's LinkedIn profile said he was exploring new opportunities in operations consulting. Day 365, 1-year anniversary of my restructuring at Midwest. I was sitting in my Goldman office reviewing the final safety report that would wrap up my contract. 18 facilities, unified procedures, zero safety violations, projected annual savings of $1.8 million through improved efficiency and reduced legal exposure. Goldman had already asked about extending the contract. They were expanding their manufacturing portfolio and wanted me to help evaluate potential acquisitions. The work was interesting, the pay was excellent, and the company actually valued safety expertise. My phone buzzed with a text from Sophia. She'd just finished her sophomore year and was starting a summer internship with a safety consulting firm in Milwaukee. Following in Dad's footsteps, she wrote, "Turns out there really is job security in keeping people safe." That evening I walked down to Rossi's for coffee. The old man was closing up but poured me a cup anyway. "How's the new job?" he asked. "Can't complain. Turns out experience is worth something after all. Funny how that works. My dad ran this place before me, his dad before him. 3 generations of Rossi's hardware. You know what they all said? What's that? The customer who fires you for doing your job right wasn't worth having anyway." I laughed. Your family's got good instincts. Speaking of instincts, you see that article in yesterday's paper? Midwest's old building sold again, 4th time in 8 months. No one wants to stay there long. Some buildings get a reputation, some people too. Word gets around in business. Company that fires their safety director to save money. Other companies remember that. Makes them careful about who they hire from there. Day 400. Nathan Brooks called with news. Goldman had identified another acquisition target, a mid-sized manufacturer in Pennsylvania. Clean financials, good management, solid market position. They wanted me to lead the safety review before they made an offer. "One question," Nathan said. "Do you know anything about this company's current safety officer?" I pulled up their website and checked the leadership page. Maria Santos, 12 years experience, former Navy safety background, looks solid, good credentials, excellent. We'll schedule the review for next month. That night I updated my consulting profile. 5 major acquisitions completed, $3.2 million in safety risk mitigated, 0 violations across 23 facilities. The phone kept ringing with new opportunities. Some people spend their careers trying to be seen. I spent mine knowing where the emergency exits were located. My mistake at Midwest was assuming someone else would read the safety manual when I left. They didn't replace me. They erased me. And like any good safety protocol, the consequences were built right into the system. Austin had called safety compliance analog solution in a digital world. Turns out analog knowledge is what keeps companies alive when the regulations change and the lawyers come calling. Midwest learned that lesson too late. Sophia's right about job security. There's always demand for people who can keep workers safe and companies out of federal trouble. Business is good. Really good. The Midwest building sits mostly empty now. For lease signs in the windows, different tenants every few months. Austin's consulting business never got off the ground. George's retirement in Arizona is probably comfortable, but his reputation in Chicago manufacturing circles is finished. Me? I'm the guy companies call when they want to make sure their safety director is irreplaceable, because experience beats innovation every single time, especially when the stakes are measured in hundreds of millions and someone's counting on you to know where all the exits are located. Just took them $680 million to figure that out.